I already know this one is going to create a controversial debate in the comment section, and I can't wait to see it. All right, listen, it was said, Billy Carson, he said it, according to this video, Jesus was an alien. Oh, we just got to get to it. Let's get to it. Let's not waste no more time.
You think Jesus was an alien?
I think Jesus was half human, half alien, and I'll tell you why. Biblical text, also with the Torah, the Quran, why are they saying the same identical things as the ancient tablets?
Billy Carson has just dropped a bombshell, claiming Jesus was actually an alien, leaving everyone in shock. According to Carson, Jesus' miracles were advanced extraterrestrial technology. He further revealed that Jesus' resurrection and ascension were alien interventions, not divine acts. What other crazy revelations does Carson have in store about the true origins of Jesus? Who is Jesus according to Carson? Billy Carson presents a provocative and unconventional view of Jesus Christ, challenging traditional religious narrative.
Remember, no judgment. No judgment. His beliefs, just like if it was me and you having a conversation, I would say to you, your beliefs are your beliefs, my beliefs are my beliefs. You know what I mean? And we can't judge each other. No judgment. Now, let's get back to it.
According to Carson, Jesus, or Yeshua, was a figure of immense spiritual power and wisdom, whose true history and teachings have been significantly altered or suppressed over the centuries. This interpretation spans from the origins of Jesus' name to his travels and spiritual education, drawing from various apocryphal texts and historical accounts.
Really was originally Isus, and that name Isus means Hail Zeus, okay? So you're calling on Zeus when you say Jesus.
Carson begins by discussing the etymology of Jesus' name, highlighting that the letter J is a relatively recent addition to the alphabet. Therefore, the original name was Isis, which translates to Hail Zeus in Greek. Carson suggests that when people say Jesus, they are inadvertently invoking the Greek god Zeus. However, he clarifies that Jesus' real name is Yeshua. This distinction is significant because it shifts the understanding of Jesus' identity and cultural context. But what's the widely held belief about the origin of Jesus' name? Turns out, it's pretty similar to what Carson said. The name Jesus has a long history that stretches back many centuries. It comes from the Hebrew name Yeshua, which means salvation, or the Lord saves. Yeshua was a common name during the time when Jesus was born. In Hebrew, names often have special meanings. Yeshua, or Joshua in English, was a name that showed hope and faith in God's power to save his people. When Jesus was born, his parents, Mary and Joseph, were told by an angel to name him Yeshua because he would save his people from their sins. As time passed, the name Yeshua was translated into different languages. When the Old Testament was translated into Greek, the name Yeshua became Isus. Greek was a common language during the time of the New Testament, so this form of the name was widely used. Later, when the Bible was translated into Latin, the name Jesus became Jesus. Over time, the pronunciation and spelling of names can change. As Latin evolved into different European languages, the name Jesus transformed. In English, it became Jesus. This transformation took place over many years and through the influence of different cultures and languages. The name Jesus is now known and used all around the world. It still carries the original meaning of the Lord saves, reminding Christians of the role Jesus plays in their faith. The story of Jesus' name shows how languages and cultures interact and change over time. That's not all Billy dove into. This guy even claims to know all the countries traveled to during his lifetime.
When Jesus disappears from the Bible, he actually ends up in Egypt, okay? You can find this information in a book that was kept out of the biblical text called the Gospel of the Holy 12.
Here, Carson delves into the so-called lost years of Jesus, the period between his childhood and the beginning of his public ministry. According to Carson, during these years, Jesus traveled to Egypt to learn the Egyptian mysteries. This information, Carson asserts, is documented in the Gospel of the Holy 12, an apocryphal text excluded from the canonical Bible. Carson has personally visited Egypt and identified the house where Jesus supposedly lived and studied, now a revered site visited by pilgrims. In Egypt, Jesus was taught by Thoth, the Atlantean priest king. Thoth is credited with founding many spiritual and mystical traditions in ancient Egypt. Carson argues that this education in Egypt provided Jesus with the profound knowledge and spiritual practices that later characterized his teachings.
Interesting how all signs continuously point back to Egypt. Like a lot of the videos that I've done and came across has us all roads pointing back to Egypt, whether we're talking about some of the archaeological discoveries, some of the tombs, some of the pyramids, the Sphinx. All of the things seems to go back there. And I just find that interesting. You know, even when we speak about Jesus, in this sense, in this video, it points back to a time there. So the importance of Egypt just continues to, I don't know, be highlighted and thrown up at us for some specific reason that we have to get answers to these questions that we have about Egypt.
Thoth was highly respected for his wisdom in areas like writing, maths, astronomy, and spiritual practices. He taught about Ma, which stands for truth, balance, and order in the universe. These ideas were crucial in Egyptian culture and spiritual beliefs. Carson suggests that Jesus' teachings were influenced by what he learned from Thoth. The mystical knowledge and spiritual wisdom Jesus gained in Egypt might have shaped his ideas about love, compassion, and the nature of God. Thoth's teachings also included ideas about the soul's journey and life beyond the physical world. These concepts could have influenced Jesus' teachings about the kingdom of God and eternal life. In Carson's view, Jesus' time with Thoth in Egypt represents a time of cultural and spiritual exchange. It suggests that Egyptian teachings, through figures like Thoth, might have contributed to the foundation of Christianity. This idea challenges traditional beliefs about Jesus' early life and suggests that his teachings were shaped by his experiences in Egypt.
And he goes to Tibet to learn Qigong and Reiki healing, which was confirmed by the Dalai Lama. And then he heads down into India to learn the mystic arts, teaching reincarnation all the way back. Then the Bible picks him up at the age of 32. I called my son out of Egypt. He shows up on the back of a donkey, proclaims himself to be the Messiah.
Carson's narrative extends beyond Egypt, claiming that after his time there, Jesus traveled to Tibet and India. In Tibet, Jesus learned Qigong and Reiki healing techniques, practices centered on the manipulation of energy for healing and spiritual growth. Carson asserts that these practices were confirmed by the Dalai Lama. Sounds a bit weird, right? Jesus learning Reiki? Reiki is a practice that focuses on healing and relaxation. It comes from Japan and uses gentle touch or near touch to help people feel better. The word Reiki means universal life energy in Japanese. The idea is that this energy flows through all living things and can be used to heal and bring balance. During a Reiki session, a practitioner places their hands lightly on or just above the person receiving treatment. They believe this helps the energy flow into the body to promote healing. The touch is usually gentle and can feel warm or soothing. People who practice Reiki say it can help reduce stress, pain, and anxiety. It is also used to improve overall well-being. Reiki is based on the belief that everyone has energy fields around them, sometimes called aura or...
Go back, because I've never heard of, this is the first time I've ever heard of Reiki. I want to read this passage right quick.
Based on the belief that everyone has energy fields around them.
It said Reiki involves a practitioner placing their hands, which we just saw on previous slides, lightly or on or slightly above a patient's body in the act to balance an energy field. Now, if you're big on energies, which I am, I'm big on energies, even like going around people, like you can feel like bad energy, negative energy. And I always kind of want to distance myself away from that because I feel like a person can put that energy or you can like receive a person's negative or bad energy by being around them, close to them, you know, if you're not strong enough to push it off. So I totally get this, not saying that I believe it's true. I get this. And it says the approach is based on an Eastern medicine belief that An internal energy may facilitate the body's own healing ability. Few high-quality studies of. Very, very interesting, especially if you're big on energy. This probably resonates with you the most.
Sometimes called aura or chi. When these energy fields are out of balance, it can affect a person's health and emotions. Practitioners of Reiki aim to rebalance these energy fields by channeling the universal life energy through their hands. The origins of Reiki trace back to the early 20th century in Japan, where a man named Mikao Usui developed the practice. He believed that anyone could learn to use Reiki to heal themselves and others. Today, Reiki is practiced around the world and has different variations. But
Did y'all watch Karate Kid back in the day? I'm sorry. I know this is probably off, but remember when something happened to Daniel's son's leg, and Mr. Miyagi clapped together and did that? And then he placed his hand. Is that what that was? Oh man, that takes me back to my childhood, bro, right there. I know y'all like, really, L? Really? I'm sorry, but that just popped up in my mind.
the core idea of using energy for healing remains the same. Reiki sessions can vary in length, often lasting from 30 minutes to an hour. People receiving Reiki usually lie down fully clothed on a massage table or sit in a comfortable chair. The practitioner may place their hands on specific parts of the body or work through a series of hand positions to cover the whole body. Back to Carson, he claimed that in India, Jesus studied the mystic arts and teachings on reincarnation. These teachings influenced Jesus' understanding of the soul, life, and death. Carson highlights that these aspects of Jesus' life are often ignored or dismissed by mainstream Christianity, which focuses more on his divinity than his humanity and quest for knowledge. What do you think about the idea of Jesus learning Reiki?
Who says it was ignored? I don't think Christians ignored that. That's a pretty bold statement to make. I don't think that was ignored. No, not at all. No, I don't see that being ignored. Maybe you never heard him speak on it, or maybe it hasn't been discussed or anything like that, but I don't think it's ignored, no.
Hard to imagine, right?
Christ consciousness.
Where did you get this info? What book did you read that said this? Because this isn't, you didn't come up with this, you read this from somewhere. What did you read that told you this?
The Gospel of the Holy 12.
The Gospel of the Holy 12.
Another apocrypha text that was, kept out of the canonized Bible.
Got it. And that's what you learned from this.
Central to Carson's interpretation is the concept of Christ consciousness. Carson argues that Jesus' primary message was not about his return as a physical being, but the return of Christ consciousness. This term refers to a state of heightened spiritual awareness and unity with the divine. Carson believes that Jesus intended for all individuals to attain this level of consciousness, characterized by love, compassion, and a deep connection to the universe. Carson emphasizes that this message was revolutionary and ahead of its time. He suggests that Jesus' teachings were meant to empower individuals to discover their divine nature and live in harmony with the world. However, due to the prevailing religious and political structures, this message was misunderstood and suppressed. Carson also briefly mentions that a lot of the information he has was actually excluded from the canonized Bible. What does that mean? The canonized Bible refers to the collection of sacred scriptures that are officially accepted as authoritative and divinely inspired by a religious community. For Christians, the canonized Bible typically consists of the Old Testament and the New Testament, though the specifics of which books are included can vary among different Christian denominations. The development of the canonized Bible was a gradual process over centuries. In ancient times, various texts and writings circulated among early Christian communities. These included letters from apostles, accounts of Jesus' life and teachings, historical narratives, and prophetic writings. As Christianity spread, different regions and communities had their own collections of scriptures that they considered sacred and authoritative. Key developments in the formation of the Christian Bible included early Christian writings. In the first few centuries after Jesus' death, writings such as the letters of Paul, the Gospels aka accounts of Jesus' life, and other texts were highly regarded and circulated among Christian communities. Criteria for canonization. Church leaders and theologians debated which writings should be considered authoritative and inspired by God. They considered factors such as apostolic authorship, which refers to whether a text was written by an apostle or someone closely associated with an apostle, theological consistency with established Christian beliefs, and widespread acceptance among different Christian communities.
Now you have to ask yourself, do you believe that things are being withheld? That's not something I can answer for you. That's something that you have to go on your own spiritual journey and find out and do research and all of that different things, you know? I think about the book of Enoch and different things like that. So often when they speak about this, I have that in the back of my mind, like, you know, I have questions, and it's okay to have a question in my belief. Am I questioning God? No, I'm not questioning God. But I do have questions about certain things that may not be there, may have been mentioned in the Bible, but doesn't have a whole book or passage or different things not be in there. So I do have those, but not questioning him. Don't get that mistaken.
Councils and decisions. Several church councils in the 4th century, such as the councils of Hippo in 393 AD and Carthage in 397 AD, played significant roles in finalizing the list of books that would be included in the New Testament. These councils affirmed certain writings as canonical and authoritative, while excluding others that did not meet the established criteria. Formation of Old Testament canon. The Old Testament canonization process predates Christianity and was largely established by Jewish authorities before the time of Jesus. Early Christians largely adopted the Jewish scriptures as their Old Testament, with some differences in the arrangement of books. Finalization and acceptance. By the end of the 4th century, the canon of both the Old Testament and the New Testament was largely settled in the Western Christian Church, while the Eastern Christian Church had slight variations. Over time, the canonized Bible became universally recognized among Christians as the authoritative collection of sacred scriptures.
Get on your knees and pray before you go to bed. Say the Lord's Prayer before you go to bed. And so I got on my knees and I said the Lord's Prayer, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, you know. But then when you trace back that Lord's Prayer, whose prayer is that? That's the prayer of Ptah. Who's Ptah? Ea Enki from the Sumerian tablets. He wrote that prayer in ancient cuneiform, which then made it all the way into the Bible. And you think you're praying to God, you're saying the prayer of Ptah. So we've been brainwashed. We've been programmed because for generations, we keep getting handed down this system where we're given this false creation of who we are, and we believe it wholeheartedly. We'll fight for it to the absolute death. People will die over those things that were given to them, not that they came up with on their own initially or originally. So it's a dangerous thing because we have a lot of people walking around that just took the programming code, and they don't even understand really who they are, what they're all about.
Carson then explores the reasons why these aspects of Jesus' life and teachings have been obscured. He argues that institutionalized religion has systematically suppressed knowledge that empowers individuals and challenges the established order. By controlling the narrative of Jesus' life and emphasizing doctrines that enforce obedience and conformity, religious authorities have maintained their power and influence. Carson's views are based on various apocryphal texts and historical interpretations that were excluded from the canonical Bible. He believes that these texts hold essential truths about Jesus' life and teachings that have been deliberately omitted to maintain the status quo. Carson encourages individuals to explore these sources and question the traditional narratives handed down through generations. Carson's interest in these alternative perspectives on Jesus stems from his personal journey of spiritual awakening. Growing up in a quasi-Christian household, he was encouraged to read and analyze the Bible from a young age. This early exposure to religious texts led him to question inconsistencies and seek deeper understanding. Over time, Carson's studies and experiences led him to explore a wide range of spiritual traditions and texts, culminating in his current beliefs. Carson's journey is marked by a relentless pursuit of truth and a desire to break free from the constraints of traditional religious dogma. He believes that by seeking knowledge and understanding, individuals can reclaim their spiritual sovereignty and live in alignment with their true purpose. This journey is not just about intellectual discovery, but also about personal transformation and empowerment. Now let's talk a bit about Billy Carson's life. Carson is a prominent figure in the fields of ancient history, archaeology, and space exploration. He is known for his work as an author, researcher, and expert speaker who explores profound questions about human origins, ancient civilizations, and the mysteries of the universe. Carson's journey into these realms began with a deep fascination for space and the cosmos, which eventually led him to delve into the ancient texts and artifacts that hold clues to humanity's past. Carson is the founder of Forbidden Knowledge, Inc., an organization dedicated to exploring and sharing knowledge on a wide range of topics, including ancient civilizations, extraterrestrial life, and advanced technologies from ancient times. Through his platform, Carson engages with a global audience eager to uncover hidden truths and alternative perspectives on history and science. One of Carson's notable contributions is his exploration of ancient civilizations and their advanced technologies. He posits that many ancient cultures possessed knowledge and capabilities far beyond what mainstream history acknowledges. Carson delves into texts such as the Sumerian clay tablets, Egyptian hieroglyphs, and ancient Indian scriptures, interpreting them through the lens of advanced science and technology that may have existed in antiquity. In addition to his research on ancient civilizations, Carson is a vocal advocate for space exploration and the search for extraterrestrial life.
Now I see why he's so talked about and hated at the same time. When you cover these topics, religion, ancient history, archaeology, aliens, extraterrestrials, oh, bro, you asking for it, you know? You asking for it, and you're gonna be scrutinized, and that comes with the territory. I've seen it. I've seen it. People would rather hate you than communicate and talk about what it is that you're doing, your beliefs or your findings, and kind of like compare notes per se. They would rather hate you than sit down and talk with you and get a better understanding of you. Now I see why. With all that he covers, yeah. Because I could react to him, and me and him can disagree or agree on a few topics or anything, but people automatically come in the comment section and it's like, oh my gosh, Billy Carson, I ain't watching this video. He this, that, and third. And they just bash him before you even figure out what I took from it or what you may get from something that you haven't seen him talk about.
Discusses how ancient texts and archaeological findings hint at possible interactions between ancient humans and beings from other worlds. This perspective challenges conventional views of human history and our place in the universe, prompting deeper questions about our origins and potential future encounters with extraterrestrial intelligence. As an author, Billy Carson has penned several books that explore these themes in detail. His works include Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, where he explores the teachings of Thoth, an ancient Egyptian figure associated with wisdom and esoteric knowledge. Carson interprets these teachings through a modern scientific and spiritual lens, offering insights into universal truths and the interconnectedness of all life. Carson's presence extends beyond his written works. He is a sought-after speaker at conferences and events worldwide. His lectures blend scientific research with spiritual wisdom, aiming to inspire audiences to reconsider their understanding of history and the universe. Through his engaging speaking style, Carson invites listeners to explore alternative perspectives and think critically about the narratives that shape our understanding of reality.
Maybe around 12 or 13, I realized something was too much. There was too much contradiction in the text. Because remember, I'm doing book reports on the biblical text. And when I got to the point where God said, I create the good and I create the evil, do what I say at the Lord, that's in Isaiah, then I realized something was really off here, because I realized through my studies that God had killed over 3 million people in the Bible, and that Satan didn't kill anybody.
As the podcast moves on, Carson contextualizes his views within the broader historical and religious landscape. He explains that throughout history, religious institutions have often distorted or suppressed teachings that threaten their authority. This includes the teachings of Jesus, which Carson believes were intended to awaken humanity to its divine potential and interconnectedness. Carson also discusses how various ancient texts, including the Sumerian tablets, have influenced biblical narratives. He points out that many prayers and rituals in Christianity have origins in earlier pagan traditions, further complicating the traditional understanding of Jesus and his message. But the part of this podcast is what really made people raise their eyebrows. What exactly did Carson say to spark so much controversy? Jesus was an alien.
I've got some friends all the way from, we moved around a lot, but by the time we got to Miami, New Orleans, I got friends from Miami, New Orleans from 7th grade till today.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me go back to something you said. You said when I read the Bible, Deuteronomy, you went to multiple different books in the Bible, right? And you said, what I'm noticing here is, God killed 3 million, but the devil, I don't hear anything about the devil. What did you mean by that?
Well, what I'm saying is we have to understand that a lot of the orders for death, including Sodom and Gomorrah, are being created or being ordered by God himself.
In the podcast, Billy Carson discusses his long-term friendships from Miami and New Orleans. Providing a personal touch before diving into his interpretation of the Bible, he highlights the numerous instances where God commands mass killings in the Bible, such as the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Carson contrasts these actions with the absence of similar deeds attributed to the devil, prompting him to question the true identity of the biblical God. He also argues that the violent orders in the Bible, like the annihilation of entire cities, are often attributed to God. However, he suggests that this entity may not be the actual creator of the universe. Instead, Carson thinks that advanced beings, mistaken for gods, were responsible for these actions. This interpretation challenges traditional views of divinity and invites a re-examination of ancient texts. Now, the Bible actually does contain several accounts of God annihilating cities as a form of divine judgment. One of the most well-known stories is the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, found in Genesis 18:19. These cities were infamous for their wickedness and sin. God decided to destroy them, but first informed Abraham, who pleaded for the cities to be spared if righteous people could be found there. Despite this, not enough righteous individuals were present, and God rained down fire and brimstone, completely obliterating the cities. Another significant example is the fall of Jericho in Joshua 6. As the Israelites, led by Joshua, entered the Promised Land, God commanded them to conquer Jericho. The city's walls miraculously fell after the Israelites marched around them for 7 days and shouted as God instructed. This act demonstrated God's power and judgment against the inhabitants of Jericho. In the book of Revelation, future destruction is prophesied. Revelation 18 describes the fall of Babylon, a symbol of great evil and corruption. An angel proclaims Babylon's downfall, declaring that it will be utterly destroyed due to its sins and the suffering it caused. This passage illustrates God's ultimate judgment against evil and corruption in the world. What do you think about Carson's theory? Is it too out there? Carson delves into ancient texts like the Book of Enoch to support his theory. He describes the story of the angel Azazel, who descended from the heavens and taught humans how to make weapons and armor. According to Carson,
it doesn't seem as out there as people make him out to be. Like, I can understand where he's coming from, although be that as it may, I may not agree with a lot of the things he's saying. I can see how somebody can arrive at that thought process. I can absolutely 1000%. And maybe your hatred for him doesn't allow you to see where he's coming from or where he derived his questions from. You have to remove that to be able to have that discourse and dialogue with him. But I can see where he's coming from. Absolutely.
This act of imparting advanced knowledge indicates that these beings were not angels, but rather advanced beings or aliens with superior technology. Carson explains that these beings were often indistinguishable from humans in appearance, but possessed extraordinary capabilities. He refers to various ancient texts that mention these beings under different names. In the Bible, they are called the Anakim, described as giants who were perceived as gods by ancient people. Carson mentions the Anunnaki, an ancient Mesopotamian civilization, who were also considered to be powerful beings from the heavens. Carson expands on the idea of advanced beings visiting Earth by referencing legends from various cultures. He talks about the Aboriginal elders in Australia, who believe they were seeded on Earth by the Pleiadians, a group of extraterrestrial beings. Similar stories are found among other indigenous tribes, who refer to these beings as their star brothers. Carson criticizes modern interpretations that dismiss these ancient legends, arguing that ancient people left behind clear evidence of their encounters with advanced beings through drawings and writings.
These are not what they call quote-unquote angels, in my opinion. These are what people call aliens or advanced. I call them advanced beings because we look a lot like them and they look a lot like us. There is some distinction that they were distinguishable from humans, but they look just like humans in the biblical text. I think Jesus was half human, half alien, and I'll tell you why. When you look at the Apocrypha text, you discover, first of all, in the regular Bible, you discover he's born of a virgin birth, right? But then in the Apocrypha text, you discover that his grandmother was also born of a virgin birth. So it seems like this establishment of a bloodline there specifically. When you read the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, you discover that he talks about he developed the ability to incarnate at will on and in any plane that he desires.
Carson connects these ideas to Jesus, suggesting that Jesus was a hybrid of human and alien. He points to the virgin birth of Jesus and his grandmother, as mentioned in apocryphal texts, as evidence of a deliberate bloodline established by these advanced beings. Carson believes that Jesus possessed extraordinary abilities due to his unique heritage. Carson refers to the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, ancient texts that describe beings with the ability to incarnate at will in any plane of existence. He believes that Jesus, like these beings, had the power to transcend dimensions and reincarnate. This perspective offers a radically different view of Jesus, not as a purely divine figure, but as a being with extraterrestrial origins. Carson further elaborates on the technological capabilities of these beings. He mentions the rejuvenation chambers, described in ancient texts, which he believes were used by these beings to transfer their consciousness between bodies. These chambers, according to Carson, were advanced devices that allowed beings to extend their lifespans indefinitely by rejuvenating their bodies. In the podcast, Carson also discusses the Serapeum in Saqqara, Egypt, where he believes one of these rejuvenation chambers is located. He describes the massive stone boxes made of granite and diorite, which he claims still emit radioactive energy. According to Carson, these boxes were used to create and store bodies, allowing beings to transfer their consciousness and rejuvenate themselves. Carson argues that this ability to transfer consciousness and rejuvenate bodies enabled these beings to live for eons. He suggests that Jesus might have used similar methods to transcend death and return in different forms. This interpretation challenges conventional religious views and introduces a new perspective on ancient myths and legends. All of this aside, who's to say Carson is a reliable source of religious information?
You read the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, you discover that he talks about he developed the ability to incarnate at will on and in any plane that he desires. That's pretty powerful stuff. He's saying he can come back however he wants and when he wants and in any dimension that he wants. He even talks about having rejuvenation chambers, which is what I believe the Serapeum is located in Saqqara in Egypt, is one of his rejuvenation chambers, where they would actually create bodies and put bodies in these gigantic megaton stone boxes made of granite and diorite, which are still radioactive, by the way. You can take your Geiger counter, they're still radioactive. They have an energy source coming out of them. And then he said that I would transfer my consciousness from one body to the next. He would leave another body in there rejuvenating for 100 years, then he'd come back and get it, and he'd do that over and over again. And by that method, he lived through eons. Pretty interesting. So I think maybe they decided to come back through a womb.
Got it. What's your level of certainty on that?
My level of certainty?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, man. I feel pretty confident in it. You know, and the reason why is because I've just done the work. I've read so much information and I've been able to put together so many dots. And I think that the average person is saying, wow, sounds outrageous because this is what I was taught in school. And all they have is the level of what their parents told them and what the school told them.
Carson expresses a high level of confidence in his research, stating that he has dedicated significant time and effort to studying ancient texts and connecting various pieces of evidence. He acknowledges that his views may seem outrageous to some, but he believes that mainstream education and traditional beliefs limit people's understanding of ancient history. Carson criticizes the education system for stifling creativity and critical thinking, turning people into NPCs who blindly accept handed-down knowledge. He argues that many traditional beliefs are based on outdated information that lacks scientific rigor. In contrast, Carson claims that his research is grounded in a thorough investigation of ancient texts, archaeological findings, and scientific principles. Carson compares his approach to building a case in a court of law, where circumstantial evidence can be sufficient to convict someone of a crime. He believes that by connecting various pieces of evidence from different timelines and disciplines, he can construct a compelling argument for his theories. Carson emphasizes that his ability to synthesize information from diverse sources sets him apart from other researchers who may specialize in narrow fields. The devil.
The devil. Who is the devil in your eyes? Is he also an alien, or is it not a real person, not a real spirit? Who's the devil?
Let me tell you what happened. So you go again into the ancient tablets, you discover that, and Yahweh, who's in the Bible, is known as God, right? Yahweh is known in the ancient text as Satan, the Lord of Eden, E-D-I-N. The land between the Euphrates and the Tigris rivers is where they had the Eden, E-D-I-N. And when he has his outdoor laboratories, what I like to call it, where they discovered that mating these people together would work if they had enough genetic diversity. So what happens is his brother Enki, who's now known as Satan, he comes in and he starts talking to the people there, and he starts telling them, it wasn't just Adam and Eve he was talking to, there were other people there. And he was telling them how powerful they really were, and that the mysteries of the universe was inside of their body, and that they had the ability to ascend even to a higher level than even them. And so these people then realized that they weren't animals. They clothed themselves. And by the time this Yahweh character, also known as Enlil, comes back, Satan, he realizes what's happened, that his brother has given them the apple.
Billy Carson dives into a re-examination of biblical characters, particularly Yahweh and Satan, through the lens of ancient Sumerian texts. He presents an unconventional perspective by identifying Yahweh, traditionally known as God, as Satan in these ancient writings. This reinterpretation sets the stage for a deeper exploration of biblical stories and their origins. Carson also discusses the ancient land of Eden, located between the Euphrates and Tigris rivers, describing it as an experimental site where genetic diversity was cultivated. Yahweh, or Satan in this context, was engaged in these genetic experiments. He suggests that this reinterpretation challenges traditional religious narratives by presenting Yahweh not as a divine creator, but as a being involved in manipulating genetics to ensure diversity. Then, Carson introduces Enki, Yahweh's brother, who he equates with Satan. According to Carson, Enki provided humans with knowledge of their true potential and the mysteries of the universe, symbolized by the biblical story of Adam and Eve. This enlightenment empowered humans and led them to cover themselves, representing their newfound awareness and autonomy. Carson asserts that Yahweh, upon discovering this, cursed Enki and labeled him as the devil, thereby creating the traditional notion of the devil as an evil entity. Carson transitions to his views on modern satanic practices, which he disapproves of, emphasizing that his beliefs are rooted in metaphysics and the understanding of frequencies rather than traditional religious views. He clarifies that he is not an atheist and believes in a creator, which he describes as a frequency rather than a personified deity. This belief aligns with his broader perspectives on universal consciousness and interconnectedness. He elaborates on his theory of a universal consciousness, where all beings are interconnected through shared frequencies. Using the analogy of radio frequencies, Carson explains how each individual encapsulates a specific point of consciousness from the universal mind.
So is that, and I'm asking a question because I'm confused by that, the whole frequency aspect of it. He kind of lost me there. So would that go back to earlier when we were speaking about energies? Are we all connected through energies? If that's the case, then I understand what he's saying, but he lost me on that one. I would have to dig into some more, but I definitely want to continue and hear some more of what Billy Carson's had to say. But anyway, let's keep going.
This perspective challenges traditional views of individuality and divinity. suggesting a more unified and interconnected existence. Carson's exploration of the devil through ancient texts and modern interpretations provides a compelling re-examination of traditional religious narratives. His perspective encourages a broader understanding of divinity, consciousness, and the interconnectedness of all beings, offering a fresh lens through which to view these age-old concepts. But there are many who don't exactly see Carson as a legitimate voice. Criticism. Criticism of Billy Carson's views on Christianity often revolves around his interpretations and assertions that diverge from traditional Christian teachings and scholarly consensus. One common critique is Carson's approach to interpreting biblical texts and historical events through a lens that blends ancient astronaut theory with spiritual beliefs. His theories sometimes suggest that ancient civilizations had advanced knowledge or interactions with extraterrestrial beings, influencing religious narratives and beliefs. This perspective challenges mainstream Christian interpretations that emphasize divine revelation and historical context. What's more is that Carson's assertions about Jesus Christ and biblical figures can be seen as controversial. Critics argue that his views lack solid scholarly backing and may rely more on speculative theories than on historical evidence or theological consensus. For example, suggesting that Jesus had extraterrestrial connections or that biblical miracles were technological advancements rather than divine interventions can be contentious within Christian circles. And finally, Carson's platform and popularity among followers of alternative theories and ancient mysteries sometimes lead to concerns about the dissemination of historically inaccurate or misleading information about Christianity. Critics argue that while exploring alternative perspectives can be enriching, it should be grounded in rigorous scholarship and respect for established religious beliefs. So what do you think about Carson's crazy claims? Could Jesus actually have been an alien, or is it just another weird theory?